Thanks so much for tuning into this very special conversation with Dr. Anish Shah. The new government is formed. The portfolios, in all fairness, may or may not have as much of an implication to the overall business confidence, because we know overall the construct by virtue of the ministers who've been sworn in as well. So let's try and understand what is it that India Inc. might want from the new government as a whole. And joining us, as I said, to talk about that is Dr. Anish Shah. Dr. Shah, great having you. Thanks for taking the time out. For you, Dr. Shah, and for the industry at large, is it a need for further reforms coming in soon? Is it the need for policy continuity, or is it for reforms which have been taken for the last 5-7 years to now start bearing fruit, and no immediate need of earth-shattering reforms needed from the new cabinet or the new government?
Neeraj, good evening. Pleasure to be here with you. And at FICCI, we've been working a lot with our members and sharing their thoughts with the government. A lot has happened over the past few years, and the focus that the government has had in the past few years on long-term growth, and therefore on CapEx, which is a greater multiplier effect, has started to see fruit. Now, it does take some time for that to happen. At this stage, we would want, as an industry, more of the same. In fact, maybe ramped up a little more. What we would ideally like is in 4 key areas. First is in manufacturing, make in India for the world. How do we create lower cost for manufacturing, make it easier to do business than it is today, and position India as a high-quality nation? That is going to help us make in India for the world. The second is around women-led development, women in manufacturing, many other initiatives to get women into the labor force, and really position equality as a key focus area for us. Third is around farm prosperity. It's on the value chains from farm to fork, increasing efficiency at farms, enhancing farm productivity, and thereby being able to do more with less. And finally, around sustainability, around water positive as a country, building sustainable urban cities, and playing a key role in the green transition from a climate change standpoint. These are the key areas of focus that as FICCI, we would want a lot more as we go forward. As I said, a lot has been done, and therefore just continuing that path would be a very positive one for us.
Okay. There's a lot of talk around that while there is an added RBI dividend kitty with the government, rural has been hurting, and therefore out of the $100 that the government has in total for spending on either CapEx or infrastructure or rural spend, and typically, how can a government influence near-term growth? It is by some fiscal impulse. So there's a lot of chatter about whether the government does that, or does it continue the path of CapEx, which has got a, how do I say, a slightly medium-term impact as well. What's your sense? What would the industry ideally want, sir?
So if we look at this, Neeraj, over the last few years, we've had a couple of very strong years in rural and a couple of years that were weaker. Yes, there has been a lot of view on rural distress. We're seeing some green shoots now. And if we have a good monsoon, we're fairly optimistic that rural should do well. So we would not look for something dramatic on the rural side. Maybe some interventions are required, but on balance, and we'd look at longer term growth. It's easier to have incentives and softs, but from an economy standpoint, the multiplier effect is a lot lower there. And therefore, we should really look for longer term growth and therefore invest in areas that will create that multiplier for that long term growth.
There is the other chatter that people who are thinkers of what the economy and markets could do over the medium term and long term and what could potentially happen is that cost of capital by and large could come off at a point of time when India Inc. and the private sector might now start coming in, not just in bits and parts, but in a major way into doing private capex. You think there is anything that the industry could expect from the government from a cost of capital perspective, or could it be a natural curve downwards as well as globally over the next 12 to 18 months countries start lowering the rates, if they do, that is, in the first place?
I think the key is for us to keep inflation in control. And we would give the RBI a lot of credit for the proactive actions they've taken in doing so, because having inflation out of control is in many ways much worse than having a slightly higher cost of funds. And therefore, that is the first agenda that RBI has, which we would fully agree with. And as inflation continues to stay in control, which it has, we're starting to see global trends where certain economies are starting to reduce rates, and that will have an effect on India as well. And it's likely that we will see reduced rates. We will, again, rather be a little more hawkish to make sure that inflation does not rear its ugly head again. But as that happens, as the economy stays on a good path, I think it will only be a more positive picture for us if rates go down.
Yeah. Now, Dr. Shah, I heard you say that you would expect some bit of, if I can, I mean, not verbatim, but a bit of a present continuous, if you will, that what's been done in the past continues into the present and into the future as well from the government side on the policy. A few things stand out. The whole, I mean, aside of the, leaving out the financial pieces, which is the whole JAM Trinity, Jandan, etc. On the other side, the focus on manufacturing, electrification, power, electric vehicles, defense, and a few, which were maybe the cornerstone of Modi 2.0. What, to your mind, is something that you are maybe raring to hear and having more clarity around within some of these pieces, or newer areas that even Mahindra as a group might be going in, or as a head of FICCI, you are hearing from your team members?
I think the key for us is going to be around stability, around policies that will help manufacturing, policies that will help on the farm prosperity front, to repeat what I had said earlier. And we've seen a fair amount of progress in the past on that. If we see that progress continue, I think that would be a positive aspect for us. And if we see that progress accelerate further, that would be even better. So on balance, I'd say nothing that's dramatically different from what we've seen so far.
Couple of questions. One is on growth. There is a natural curve of growth that India is enjoying right now. Would you reckon that, I mean, there are two ways to look at it. One is to try and give some bit of further impulse to this growth via fiscal measures or otherwise, in order to take it higher from the 6.5, 6.8, whatever number that people peg FY25 growth to be like, simply because people say that if we don't do a growth long enough, then the demographic dividend might not remain a dividend per se. The other way to look at it is that the world growth is still anemic. Don't try and further stimulate something at this current point of time and save the gunpowder for maybe a future date. Which side do you veer on?
On this, Neeraj, FICCI was the first to, in fact, forecast that India's growth will be 8%. FICCI did that in December last year. And we have hit 8% for fiscal 24. As we look at fiscal 25, again, we are fairly optimistic on the growth agenda there. I think India is well positioned. India is going to add more to the global GDP than will the European Union in the next 6 years. And by 2028, India is poised to be the single largest contributor to the global GDP. So we are on a very strong path right now. And I think it's important for us to continue developing the building blocks for the future, not something that's short term. The main message that we would have from industry is continue to focus on the long term, continue to put the building blocks in place that will help build a stronger economy and that will have a benefit across all sectors of the economy.
Yeah, so no immediate pressing needs to have a large stimulating measure to further enhance growth, which is looking at about 6.5 to 7% for FY25. Whatever the number may be, I'm not putting a number to your name. I'm just saying, assuming that that's the range that everybody is working with, you believe that is okay. There's no further need to have overstimulate that at the current point of time.
Yeah, we believe that it's not about a short-term stimulus. It's about having the right building blocks in place, the right investments in place to be able to create long-term. And the only other point I'd mention there is inclusive growth, because this is growth that has to have all sectors of the economy, all segments of the consumer along with it, not just in certain pockets.
So no major rural focus stimulus. I mean, rural has been hurting in select pockets, not overall. Would you believe or would you want either of the two that there could be some uh, not overt measures in order to help that segment?
I think we need to monitor rural closely. We've seen some green shoots in 2 months. The question is whether that continues or not. We will see how rainfall comes up. And that, I think, will give a better sense of should there be a greater stimulus, which is more shorter term, versus measures that the government should take to really transform certain aspects of farm productivity, for example, or the farm value chain, which will have a much longer term impact.
Got it. Okay, Dr. Shah, with the clarity that we have thus far, this is lovely. Maybe we talk to you again post the budget to try and understand what's your thought on as things have come out of post the budget from your perspective or from FICCI's perspective. But thanks so much for speaking to us today.
Sounds good. Thank you, Neeraj.
Yeah, the pleasure is ours. And viewers, thanks for tuning in to this broadcast.